Okay, this podcast covers the exceeding light tutorial, and I have my photon ready. You also need the light sensor. Barely see it. Should I put it in the view here? Okay, there we go. And the way I did mine was on the light sensor, it comes pretty straight, like this, like straight. You want to basically bend it to where um, it can fit on the board that we're going to plug it into, and if the case was shut, it would still be okay. So the way I ended up doing mine basically was I'll try to put it in the camera here, both cameras actually. So I'll try to hold it that way. So the sensor is there and it's kind of plugged in that way. When it sits down on the breadboard, it's going to not hit the top of the case. That's the whole reason behind it. So anyway, you'll need that. You'll also need a resistor. The resistor, I bent it to look kind of like a horseshoe. We'll see why in a second. Here's a little video of what it does. And also I have a light source this little light that I have that I'm going to use for a light source. You have to play with the sensor part. We're also going to be using IFTTT to call a phone number whenever the sense is exceeded for the light. So watch this video here. And you'll see a light go off here, and right there, that blue light, that's the D7. And then the call happens. So you need a photon sensor, the photo sensor, a resistor. I've already done the setup Wi-Fi and the resetting of photon. The pins, we're not going to be using the out DO, even though it's in there in the documentation. We're only going to be using the AO and the A5. The AO and the A5. And I'm going to go to the diagram again of the AO and A5. In fact, I think I have it on my computer here. I'll just do it that way instead of trying to go to the website. There it is. So we will be using the AO and A5 as we'll be plugging in the photo sensor into those two pins. And then we'll be doing and we'll use the first row of pins, the first holes outside of the photon, AO and A5. And then at the second row outside of that, we'll do the resistor AO and ground. So AO, A5 for the sensor, AO and ground for the resistor. And what the resistor is for is sensors, pulses, and some of the sensors have to have resistors so fuses won't blow, and so um, uh, the mechanism of the actual sensor doesn't have electrical components in it. So because it doesn't, that's what a resistor is used for. So I will minimize this for now. And we'll go ahead and put in the pins. This is a picture of it from a side view Again, the AO A5 for the photon sensor, the photo sensor, and then the AO ground for the resistor. So I'm going to see if I can, after I get mine done here, I'm going to bring it closer to you on the camera, but for now, I'm going to just connect it. It's the AO and the A5. Okay, so I have the AO and A5 connection complete. Hard to see on that. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the resistor, which is AO and ground. And I might bring the camera down lower once I get this done. So the ground, and that's why we bend it like a horseshoe. That way we can get it in there. And I want it on the second row. The second row pins outside of the photon. Good. I'm going to bring the camera down to where we can maybe see it better. Get my hands out of the way. A little closer view anyway for you. That's a pretty good shot there. So you'll notice I have the AO and A5 on the photon sensor. AO and A5. And then the resistor here is the row back, AO and ground. And that's it for the setup on that. Now we're going to go and set up the IFTTT part. Zoom back in. Cool. All right, so now let's go to the IFTT part of this. All right. So to set up an IFTT, one of the things you had to do before you started the class was set up an IFTT account. And we're going to set what's called an applet and a trigger for this photon. Then we will dump some code like we've been doing. We will flash it, and then we will test it. And this time we'll be getting a call from IFTTT when it triggers this time. We don't need to be creating, we're not going to be creating any other code besides the IFTTT code and the particle app. So this link here, we'll go ahead and create go out to IFTT. We're going to create a new applet. Click on your face icon and go to create. Click on the plus. And then you'll search for PART for particle. You will have to connect the first time to your particle account, and you'll log in with your credentials for particle, and you have to give access to particle to IFTTT connection. So that part you'll have to set up initially, but it'll walk you through how to do that. We're going to use the name exceed light, and the value for the event is going to be light value is exceeded. There's going to be no quotes on both. So exceed light and light value is exceeded. We have to remember that. So new event published. Exceed light. And then light value is exceeded. Let's select my device, and yours will show up in there as well once you connect your particle. Create trigger. Now we did the if, now we'll do the then. So if this fires, an event fires, which it will, when it gets enough light, now we're going to type in call. Get all the call options. We want the phone US is what we want. Call my phone. And initially as well, you'll have to set this up possibly with IFTT to verify. It'll call your number with an ID to enter in, and you'll have to type that code in to sync the two together. So I'm going to go ahead and click Create Action. And there's my number I already put in earlier. You'll have to do the same thing. Like I said, an IFTT will call you and put a 4-digit code in. You'll have to put it in IFTT to connect the two. Now this is all set to go. All I have to do is hit Finish. And now this is now connected. So I'm going to leave that where it's at. I've done that. If you have issues, you can watch this podcast as well. It goes over the same thing on that I just did again. So particle app, pretty simple on this one. You can copy the code here, by the way, or you can click on this link here and it'll just dump the code into your particle account. I'm going to do that just to be quicker. And click copy this app. I'm going to go over the code just briefly here. It's not real difficult, but the first line of code here is the D7, which is the light that's going to be used, which is used in most of the projects for IoT. The photoresistor is A0 and A5. That's where we put the two pins, remember. And then the analog value is just going to do the light value of the sensor that's viewed when a light source hits it. It's getting kind of dark where I'm at, so I just have a light from my lamp. So you'll have to play with some numbers here in a second. I'll show you. So in the setup, we're declaring the pins, the output, the input, and the power. We're also doing a 1-pin resistor, and what this is for is we use it to basically tell the app what the power is from, and in this case, it's from the A0, A5. Then it says here we're going to write a first particle event is going to write analog value, whatever the analog value is, integer. So this right here basically is a initializer for the analog value that we'll be using throughout the app when it runs. So that's the setup. Let's look at the loop. Remember, the loop runs continuously. There is a few delays in here on purpose, just to slow it down. So the first line is getting the value from the photoresistor. The photoresistor, if we go up a little higher in the code, that is the A0. The value from A0 is what's sensed from the photoresistor. And I put mine at 1700. If analog value is 1700, I did mine kind of when it was sunny out. And so you can play with that number a little bit. Otherwise, you'll be getting a lot of calls. And so one of the things that you could do is if it doesn't fire it at all, you can see where your light is now before it hits this if value by simply doing a particle publish of the current analog, which it will do it quite often, but you could do that. What that means is you could take line 36 and put it above the if statement, and it would constantly kick out the output value. I don't do that just because it's kind of overkill. So what I do is I'll play with this number here. You can start out at a lower number if you want to. I have mine at 1700. And if you don't see any activity in your event log, you can keep updating that number till you see some activity. All right. So like I said, it's getting darker here, so I have to make mine a little lower, but I'm going to leave it like it is for now. It does an initial delay of 100 milliseconds, does a light value of what it is now, turns on the LED D7, pushes to IFTTT. This is where IFTTT catches it, by the way, because remember we called it exceed light, and the event it's looking for is this one right here, the event value. Delay for 5 seconds. Another turning off of the LED D7, and then 10 seconds. All right, so we're around 15 seconds roughly delay here that it's going to be pushing. All right, if it triggers. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure I've got my device connected, which it is. Go back to my code, and we're now ready to flash it. Flashing the code. I'm going to bring my particle in view here to where you can see it. So it's breathing. That cyan breathing is what it's happening right now. It's breathing that cyan color. That means it's actually just working now. If light was to be exceeded, by the way, we'd see the blue light showing over here on the D7, but it's not. And I brought this light here because I've already tested it. I think it goes right around 1700, something like that. So I'm going to kind of put these in both views. That way you can see it when it does trigger. I'll go to the events. Bring my screen down a little bit here now. All right, so nothing's fired yet, which I'm not surprised. Now I'm going to go to, and it's not fired because I'm not putting any light on it yet. I want us to see it in the event log. And we'll get a call as well. And I'll be bringing my phone down because I might have to unplug it, and you might have to as well if you get a number of senses. We should know because I tested mine earlier. I think this lamp does about 1700 or something like that, right around 1700, 1701. And we can go over here to the events, and I'll see my normal stuff I have running already, the temp thing. Now, I'm going to turn on the light. I'm going to put it onto the sensor here, over the sensor. In fact, I'm going to shut the lid just so I don't hurt anything. The reason I bent the sensor, by the way, is so it wouldn't hit the top of that lid right there. Okay. So I'm just going to turn the light on. We'll put it to the side here. That way you can kind of see if the light sensor turns on. Right around here, you'll see it. There it is. It just turned on once. And we'll see it on our screen. I'm putting it right over it, actually. Looks like it just hit light values exceeded 1703. 1703 is what it says. So we should be getting a call here in a second from IFTTT. We'll get that out of the way so it stops notifying it. I only got one light value, right? Good. So I should only be getting one call from IFTTT in a second. And it depends upon the time of day and their workload. It's not immediate, uh, you know, especially the first time it's ran. There it is. I'll let you hear it.
At April 18th, 2020, at 7:38 p.m., Concordia published an exceed light event. It said light value is exceeded. Message brought to you by Ifttt.
That's it right there. Pretty cool, right? And I got no one. Must have got a second one. Thought I only had one. Maybe I didn't. Just in case, I'm going to put a cover over the sensor so it doesn't get any more calls. Okay, and I just put my phone cover over it because I don't want it to get triggered. And I have some magnets here. Okay. So again, light sensor, um, and the resistor is all this one uses, and the IFTT, and that's it. And again, the light source is used, and again, that might be something you have to play with. I have your code set at 1700. This is a pretty bright LED, so you might bring it down some. I must have triggered earlier when I was on there. There we go. I must have triggered quite a few earlier when I had it on there because it triggers it pretty quick. I had the light on there a little too long, probably. That's one thing you got to be aware of. And what you can do is also, the timer as well on that code can be updated a little bit more as well. Right now, it's up. It's if it is caught in that range, mine was 1700 or higher. It makes the call, and so it could even be higher, or you can make the trigger delay even longer. Right now, mine's only 15 seconds. It could make it, 30 seconds, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. And so, for the purpose of the lab, I made it lower just because I wanted it to be done quickly, so we could see it. And it did do it quickly, like 10 of them in a row, or 5 of them, I guess. All right. So, again, this is extra for you to do. You don't have to do it, but that's it on the phone call part. You did great, and you can, play with the numbers on the light and all that good stuff. And what this is used for, just as far as use cases go, factories use this. There's some equipment that can only have so much light. If they have too much light, it can actually hurt the equipment and damage the equipment. So that's what these types of sensors are used for. Um, so it's not heat; it's light. And so an example might be some equipment cannot be exposed to daylight. If it's exposed to too much daylight, it can cause issues with the actual equipment, right? And so that's where this type of use case would be used for as well. How else could it be used? I'm glad you asked. It could also be used to trigger, like we did last time, motion. This could be triggered if somebody flips a light on in a room. This could trigger this sensor to send an email, to write to a spreadsheet, or to call. The one that I have as an extra here, and it's using IFTT again, is writing the values to a spreadsheet, which is pretty simple. You basically create a recipe like we did earlier, but instead of calling, the first part of the recipe is the same, the plus part. If the event name is, it's actually the same as this right here. If the event name is exceeded light and the value content is light values exceeded, if that's the if part, then the then part is writing it to a Google Sheet. So if light detect published goes beyond the limit, send an email to, that's another one. And then also there's another one that you could do, which is Google Sheets. Send it to Google Sheets. It'll actually create a Google Sheet for you and begin writing to the Google Sheet whenever the light's exceeded. The other one you can play with is on the then part is Facebook Messenger. You can have Facebook Messenger send you something in a Facebook message. This one here is showing one with light sensor and conference room both. So just a few extras that you can do. Those, if you want to do any of those three, by the way, the email, the spreadsheet, or the Facebook Messenger, just submit that when you do the assignment this week, and you will get extra credit for it. All right. Again, when you're done with this, like always, you're going to take a picture of your end product. You're going to post it on social media with the hashtag RVCIOT, and so you'll get full credit for it. And follow the rest of the steps in the assignment on Eagle. So great job.